Welcome to the Heart's Haven. Let the story begin. A poor girl shares her last meal, then she learns he's a billionaire. The sandwich was small, too small for two people. But Lily Carter didn't hesitate. She sat on the cold concrete steps outside a quiet bus stop, her sneakers worn thin, her jacket a size too big, sleeves swallowing her hands. The late afternoon sky hung low and grey, the kind that made everything feel slower, heavier. Cars passed, people walked by, no one stopped. Except her. Across from her sat a man in a dark coat, perfectly tailored, the kind that didn't belong on these streets. Ethan Cole stared straight ahead, his posture sharp, his expression unreadable. He hadn't said a word since sitting down, not when she arrived, not when she unwrapped her lunch, not even when her stomach growled loud enough to echo in the silence between them. Lily noticed. She always noticed. Carefully, she peeled back the wax paper, revealing half a sandwich, just bread, and a thin layer of peanut butter, slightly uneven like it had been spread in a hurry. She looked at it for a moment, then at him. "You can have some," she said softly. Ethan didn't move. Her voice wasn't desperate, it wasn't begging, it was certain, like sharing was the most natural thing in the world. Slowly, she broke the sandwich in half, one piece smaller than the other. She kept the smaller one, and held out the larger piece to him. That's when he turned. Really turned. His eyes, sharp and distant just seconds before, flickered with something unfamiliar. Confusion. Maybe even disbelief. "I'm not hungry," he said automatically, his voice calm, controlled. Lily tilted her head slightly, studying him the way children do, without filters, without fear. "Yeah," she said, "you look like you forgot how." The words didn't land loud. They didn't need to. They slipped in quietly and stayed. Ethan blinked, caught off guard. No one talked to him like that, not his employees, not his board, not anyone. But here she was. A little girl with barely enough food for herself, offering it like she had more than enough. "I can't take that," he said, softer now. She didn't pull her hand back. "My mom used to say," Lily continued, her voice steady, "food tastes better when someone sees you." A pause. A long one. The city kept moving around them, horns in the distance, footsteps fading in and out, but something had shifted in that small space between a man who had everything and a girl who had almost nothing. Ethan looked at the sandwich again, then at her. For the first time in years, he didn't see a transaction. He saw a moment, and somehow it felt heavier than any deal he'd ever signed. Lily smiled, just a little. "It's my last one," she added simply, "so we should make it count." And without realizing why, Ethan Cole reached out his hand. Ethan did not take a bite right away. He held the sandwich in his hand like it was something fragile, something unfamiliar. The peanut butter pressed unevenly between the slices of bread, the edges slightly dry from the cold air. It was simple, imperfect, real. For a moment he just looked at it. Then, slowly, he sat down beside her. Not across, not standing above, beside. The concrete step felt colder than he expected, even through the fine wool of his coat. He adjusted slightly, unused to discomfort, but he did not move away. Lily shifted closer without hesitation, like this was already normal to her. "Thank you," he said quietly. She gave a small shrug, like it was no big deal. "You are welcome." Ethan brought the sandwich closer, hesitated for a fraction of a second, then took a bite. It was dry, slightly stale. The peanut butter stuck to the roof of his mouth. But something about it, something about sitting there, shoulder to shoulder with a child who had nothing and still chose to share, made it feel different. He chewed slowly. "See?" Lily said, watching him with quiet certainty. Better, right? He exhaled softly through his nose. Not quite a laugh, not quite anything he could name. Yes, he admitted, it is. They sat in silence for a while after that. Not an awkward silence, not the kind he was used to in boardrooms filled with expectations and hidden agendas. This one was, still, honest. A bus pulled up across the street, brakes hissing. A few people got on, a few got off. No one paid them any attention. Ethan glanced down at her again. Her shoes were worn at the edges, the fabric fraying near the toes. Her backpack rested beside her, thin and faded, one strap tied in a knot where it had once torn. Everything about her spoke of limits. And yet, she had given without hesitation. "Is this where you live?" he asked. Lily shook her head, pulling her knees up slightly, wrapping her arms around them. "No, I just sit here sometimes." "Waiting for someone?" She thought about it, then shook her head again. "Just sitting." Ethan nodded, though the answer settled somewhere deeper than he expected. He took another bite, smaller this time. "When is the last time you ate?" he asked. She tilted her head, counting quietly in her mind. "This morning," she said. "I saved this one. For later? For when it matters." Her answer landed heavier than it should have. Ethan looked down at the remaining half in his hand. He had skipped meals before, missed lunches during long meetings, ordered expensive dinners he barely touched. Food had always been available, replaceable. But this was something chosen, protected, given. "Why me?" he asked, almost before he realized the question had left his mouth. Lily looked at him, really looked at him. Not at his coat, not at his watch, not at anything that usually defined him. Just him. "Because you looked like you needed it," she said, simply. Ethan frowned slightly, caught between confusion and something else he could not quite name. "I told you I was not hungry." "I know," she said gently. "But that is different." A breeze passed through the street, lifting a few loose strands of her hair. She tucked them behind her ear without thinking. "You looked like no one had shared with you in a long time." The words settled in the space between them, and for the first time in years. Ethan Cole did not have an answer. Ethan stared ahead, but he was no longer seeing the street. Her words lingered, quiet but unshakable. "You looked like no one had shared with you in a long time." It should not have meant anything, but it did, because it was true. Not in the way people would think, not in terms of food or money or access. Ethan Cole had never lacked any of that. His world was built on abundance, private drivers, executive chefs, tables reserved before he even asked. But sharing, that was something else. He exhaled slowly, his fingers tightening slightly around what remained of the sandwich. "I suppose I have been busy," he said. Lily smiled faintly, not unkind, just honest. "Busy is not the same as full." The sentence landed gently, but it stayed. Ethan glanced down at her again. There was no judgment in her voice, no accusation, just a kind of understanding that felt older than it should have been. "What about you?" he asked after a moment. "Do you always share your last meal?" She shrugged, looking down at her hands. "Not always." A pause. "Only when it feels important." "And this felt important?" She nodded. "You did not look at anyone," she said, "even when people walked right in front of you." Ethan blinked slightly, caught off guard again. "I was thinking," he replied. "I know," she said, "but sometimes thinking too much makes everything far away." Her words were simple, but they cut through layers he had built over years. Ethan leaned back slightly, resting his hands on his knees, the city stretching out in front of him like a world he had always controlled, but never really touched. "When did you learn that?" he asked. Lily lifted one shoulder. "Just watching." "Watching what?" "People who are alone." The answer was immediate. Too immediate. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest, something subtle but persistent, like a door he had kept closed was beginning to shift. A car slowed at the corner, sleek and black, barely noticeable to anyone who did not know what to look for. Ethan did not react. Not yet. Instead, he looked back at Lily. "Where do you go after this?" he asked. She pulled her backpack closer, resting her chin lightly on top of it. "I walk," she said. "Sometimes the library stays open late. Sometimes the lights are on in places where no one asks questions." He frowned slightly. "And tonight?" She thought about it for a second. "I have not decided yet." The honesty in that answer carried no fear, just uncertainty, as if she had grown used to not knowing where the next moment would take her. Ethan glanced at the half of the sandwich still in her hand. She had not taken a bite since giving it to him. "You should eat," he said quietly. She smiled again, smaller this time. "I will." But she did not move. Ethan noticed. Of course he noticed. For someone who had built his life on reading rooms, reading markets, reading people, he suddenly realized how much he had been missing. "You gave me the bigger half," he said. Lily looked down, then back up. "You needed it more." The simplicity of it made arguing impossible. Ethan let out a slow breath, something shifting deeper now, something he could no longer ignore. Behind them, the black car came to a full stop. The engine idled softly. A man stepped out from the driver's seat, adjusting his jacket as he approached with quiet urgency. "Mr. Cole," he said, keeping his voice respectful but firm, "your meeting is in 20 minutes. The world he knew had arrived. Right on time. Ethan did not turn around immediately. He stayed where he was, sitting on a cold concrete step, next to a little girl who had just given him everything she had left. Ethan finally turned his head. His driver stood a few feet away, posture straight, expression neutral, as if this moment were no different from any other. A schedule to follow, a timeline to maintain. A world that moved forward whether anyone was ready or not. "Mr. Cole," the driver repeated gently, "they are waiting." Ethan looked at him for a second, then back at Lily. She had gone quiet. Not startled, not impressed, just observant. Her eyes moved from the polished black car to the man standing beside it, then back to Ethan. There was no excitement in her expression, no sudden change in how she saw him. Only a small question forming behind her gaze. "You have somewhere to be," she said. It was not a question. Ethan glanced down at his watch out of habit, the movement automatic, almost reflexive. The time stared back at him in clean, precise numbers, every second accounted for, every minute assigned. He had built his entire life on that structure. But sitting there, on that cold step, it felt distant. "Yes," he said slowly, "I do." Lily nodded, as if that made sense. "Then you should go." The simplicity of her answer made it harder, not easier. Ethan frowned slightly. "You are not going to ask me to stay?" She shook her head. "No." "Why not?" She adjusted her grip on her small piece of sandwich, finally taking a bite, chewing thoughtfully before answering. "Because if you stay because I asked," she said, "it does not mean as much." The words settled deep. Ethan felt it again, that quiet shift inside his chest, the one that had started the moment she offered him half of everything she had. He looked back at his driver, who stood patiently, waiting for direction. Then at the car. Then at Lily. "You are going to the library tonight?" he asked. "Maybe," she said, "if it is still open." "And if it is not?" She gave a small shrug. I will figure it out. Figure it out. Two words that should not belong to someone her age. Ethan exhaled slowly, rubbing his thumb lightly against the edge of the sandwich paper, as if grounding himself in something real. Behind him, his driver shifted slightly. Sir, he said, a little more urgent now, though still respectful. This meeting has taken weeks to arrange. Ethan closed his eyes for a brief moment. Weeks of planning. Months of negotiation. Years of building a life where moments like that mattered more than anything else. And yet, he opened his eyes again and looked at Lily. She sat there, completely still, finishing the last bite of her half, as if this moment did not need to be rushed, as if time, for once, was not something chasing her. You said earlier, Ethan began carefully, that food tastes better when someone sees you. She nodded. It does. Ethan looked down at his empty hand, then back at her. And what happens after that? Lily thought about it for a second. Then she smiled, soft and certain. Then you are not invisible anymore. The world seemed to pause around that sentence. Not in sound, not in motion, but in meaning. Ethan turned toward his driver again. For the first time, his voice did not carry urgency. Call them, he said calmly. Tell them I will be late. The driver blinked, surprised, but nodded quickly, stepping back to make the call. Ethan did not watch him. He stayed exactly where he was, sitting beside Lily, choosing, for once, not what was expected, but what mattered. That answer stayed with him longer than the others. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was normal to her. He turned slightly, studying her more closely now. You said your mother used to tell you things, he said gently. Where is she? Lily's expression shifted. Not into pain, not into fear, just quieter. She is not here right now, she said. The words were careful, measured. Ethan did not press. He nodded once, respecting the boundary she had drawn without needing to explain it. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket. Lily's eyes followed the movement, curious but calm. He pulled out his wallet, opened it, paused, then closed it again, and put it back. Lily tilted her head slightly. You were going to give me money, she said. It was not a guess. Ethan gave a small, almost embarrassed breath. Yes. Why did you not? He looked at her. Really looked. Because something about this moment felt important in a way he could not explain. Because you said this was for sharing, he answered, not selling. Lily's smile returned, soft but certain. Good, she said. Ethan leaned back slightly, the weight of that decision settling into him. For the first time in a long time, he was not trying to fix something with money. He was trying to understand it. A breeze passed between them again, quieter now. Lily adjusted her backpack, pulling it closer. What happens now? She asked. The question was simple, but it carried something deeper. Not fear, not expectation, just openness. Ethan looked out at the street, then back at her. And for once, he did not reach for a plan. He reached for a possibility. How about, he said slowly, we find something warm? Lily did not answer right away. She looked at him, then at the street, then back at the small space where they had been sitting together, as if she was measuring something invisible, not the offer itself, but the meaning behind it. Warm food? She asked. Ethan nodded. Yes. She studied his face carefully, searching for something. Not wealth, not status, just intent. Like, inside? She asked. Yes, he said gently. Inside. There was a brief pause. Then she stood up. Not slowly, not uncertain, just Ready. Okay, she said. Ethan rose with her, brushing a bit of dust from his coat out of habit. The movement felt almost out of place now, like something from a version of himself that no longer quite fit. Lily adjusted her backpack, pulling the strap tighter across her shoulder. She looked smaller, standing next to him, but somehow not weaker, just lighter. Ethan glanced toward the street, then toward his driver, who had remained by the car, watching quietly from a distance. "Bring the car around," Ethan said. The driver nodded immediately, stepping forward to open the rear door. Lily stopped. She looked at the car, then at Ethan, then back at the car again. Her expression changed just slightly. Not fear, not excitement, just hesitation. "I can walk," she said. Ethan noticed. Of course he noticed. "This is just to get somewhere warm," he replied calmly. "Nothing else." She did not move. He stepped closer, lowering himself just slightly so they were closer to eye level. "You can say no," he added. "That is always allowed." The words settled differently. Not as an instruction, as permission. Lily held his gaze for a moment, then nodded once. "Okay," she said softly. Ethan stepped back, giving her space. She approached the car slowly, reaching out to touch the door for a second, as if confirming it was real. The surface reflected her small figure back at her, slightly distorted in the polished black paint. Then she climbed in. Carefully, Ethan followed, taking the seat beside her instead of the opposite side. The door closed with a soft, solid sound, sealing them into a quiet world that felt completely different from the street they had just left. The car began to move. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Lily looked out the window, watching the city pass by in blurred streaks of light, storefronts glowing, people moving, life continuing. "You ride in this every day?" she asked. Ethan glanced at her. "Yes." She nodded slowly. "It is quiet." He almost smiled. "Yes," he said. "It is." She turned back to the window. "I think I like the noisy places better." Ethan followed her gaze, watching the reflections shift across the glass. "I used to," he said. Lily looked back at him. "What happened?" Ethan paused. Not because he did not know, but because he had not said it out loud in a long time. "I stopped listening," he admitted. The answer hung gently between them. Lily nodded, as if that made perfect sense. Outside, the car slowed, turning onto a street lined with warm lights and small restaurants. The kind of places people went when they wanted to sit, stay, and feel something real. Ethan looked ahead, then back at her. "We are almost there," he said. Lily pulled her hands into her sleeves again, a small habit, familiar and quiet. "Okay," she whispered. And for the first time that day, the word did not sound uncertain. It sounded like trust. The car came to a smooth stop beneath a row of warm yellow lights. Outside, a small restaurant glowed against the evening air. Soft light spilled through the windows, casting a gentle gold onto the sidewalk. Inside, people sat close together, leaning over plates, talking, laughing in quiet tones that never needed to be loud to be heard. Lily pressed her hand lightly against the window. "It looks warm," she said. Ethan nodded. "It is." The driver stepped out and opened the door. Cool air slipped in, but it carried something different now. Not emptiness, not distance. Possibility. Lily climbed out carefully, her eyes taking in everything at once. The light, the people, the smell drifting faintly through the door as it opened and closed. Ethan stepped out beside her. For a brief moment, he watched her instead of the building. The way she paused. The way she noticed. The way she did not rush. "Come on," he said gently. They walked toward the entrance together. As soon as the door opened, warmth wrapped around them. Not just heat, but something softer. The low hum of conversation, the clink of silverware, the quiet rhythm of people sharing space. A hostess looked up, her expression shifting slightly as she took in the contrast. A man in a tailored coat. A little girl with worn shoes. Ethan noticed the look. He always noticed. "Table for two," he said calmly. She hesitated for half a second, then smiled. "Of course. Right this way." They were led to a small table near the window, not the center of the room, not hidden away. Just present. Lily slid into her seat slowly, her hands resting on the edge of the table as she looked around. Her eyes moved from the soft lighting to the folded napkins to the glass of water already placed in front of her. She touched the glass lightly, like it might disappear. Ethan sat across from her this time, but the distance felt different now, not separating, just space to see each other clearly. A menu was placed in front of her. She opened it carefully, then paused. Her eyes scanned the page, but her expression shifted again. Not confusion, not quite. Just stillness. Ethan noticed immediately. "Take your time," he said. She nodded, but she did not turn the page. Instead, she looked up at him. "How much is this place?" she asked quietly. The question was not about numbers. It was about permission. Ethan leaned forward slightly. "You do not have to worry about that tonight," he said. Lily held his gaze. "That is not what I meant." He paused, then understood. She was not asking what it cost him. She was asking what it would cost her. Ethan softened his voice. "It does not cost you anything," he said. "Not for being here." The words settled gently between them. Lily looked back down at the menu. This time, her fingers moved. Slowly, carefully, as if choosing was something she had not been allowed to do very often. A server approached, smiling politely. "Can I get you started with something warm?" Lily looked up, then at Ethan. He nodded once. "It is your choice," he said. She turned back to the server. "Something warm," she repeated softly. Then added, almost like a promise to herself, "Something we can share." The server nodded and disappeared into the soft rhythm of the restaurant, leaving behind a quiet stillness at the table. Lily folded her hands together, resting them near the edge of the plate that had not yet arrived. Her eyes wandered again, not in distraction, but in quiet wonder. Every detail seemed to matter. The way the light reflected off the glass, the soft hum of voices blending together, the warmth that did not rush or demand anything from her. Ethan watched her. Not the way he used to watch people, calculating, assessing, measuring outcomes. Just watching. "You have not asked me anything," he said after a moment. Lily looked back at him. "I already know something," she replied. He raised an eyebrow slightly. "What do you know?" She tilted her head, studying him again in that same quiet, fearless way. "You are not used to sitting like this," she said. Ethan almost smiled. "That obvious?" She nodded. "You keep looking like you are about to leave." The truth of it settled gently between them. Ethan leaned back in his chair, letting his shoulders relax, even just a little. "I used to think time was something you had to chase," he said. "If you stopped, even for a second, you would fall behind." "And now?" Lily asked. He glanced around the room, at the people who were not rushing, at the moments that were not being measured. "Now I am not so sure what I was chasing," he admitted. Lily nodded slowly, as if that made perfect sense. The server returned then, placing 2 bowls gently on the table. Steam rose softly into the air, carrying the comforting scent of something simple and warm. Lily's eyes lit up. Not wide, not dramatic, just present. "Careful," the server said kindly. "It is hot." Lily nodded, pulling the bowl closer but not touching it yet. Ethan watched as she waited. Not out of fear, out of respect for the moment. "You can start," he said. She looked at him, then picked up the spoon, hesitating for just a second. Then she took a small bite. Her shoulders softened. Her eyes closed briefly. "It is warm," she whispered. Ethan felt something shift again. Not sharp, not overwhelming, just steady. He picked up his own spoon and followed her lead. For a few minutes they ate in silence, but it was no longer empty. It was full. Lily looked up again, her expression thoughtful. "Why did you really stay?" she asked. Ethan paused. Not because he did not know, but because the answer felt different now. He set the spoon down gently. "Because you shared something you could not replace," he said. She watched him closely. "And you could?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "No," he said, "that is the part I am just beginning to understand." Lily smiled, small and certain. And in that moment, the difference between them did not feel like distance anymore. It felt like something quietly closing. The bowls were nearly empty now. Steam had faded, replaced by a quiet warmth that lingered in the air, in the table, in the space between them. Outside, the night had settled fully, the windows reflecting the soft glow of the restaurant back into itself. Lily traced the edge of her spoon with her finger, thoughtful. "That was really good," she said. Ethan nodded. It was. But he knew it was not just the food. It was the way she had tasted it, the way she had paused for it, the way she had shared it. A silence followed, gentle and unforced. Then Lily looked up. "Do you have to go back now?" she asked. The question was quiet, but it carried something new. Not fear, not expectation, just awareness. Ethan leaned back slightly, considering. For the first time in a long time, the answer was not already decided. "I do," he said softly. "Eventually." She nodded, accepting that. "That makes sense." He studied her for a moment. "And you?" he asked. "Where will you go tonight?" Lily looked down at her hands, then toward the window. "The library might still be open," she said. "If not, I will find somewhere." The same answer. But now it felt different. Because now he had heard it. Really heard it. Ethan reached for his coat, not quickly, not like before, but with intention. He slipped a card from the inside pocket, holding it between his fingers for a second, before placing it gently on the table. Lily looked at it, but did not touch it. "What is that?" she asked. "It is a way to find me," he said. She tilted her head slightly. "Why would I need to find you?" Ethan paused, then answered honestly. "Because I do not want this to be the only time someone shared something real with me." The words settled softly. Lily looked at the card again, then back at him. "You could also find me," she said. Ethan smiled, faint but real. "I think I would like that." She slid the card closer, but still did not pick it up. Not yet. Instead, she reached into her backpack and pulled out something small. A folded piece of paper, worn at the edges. She placed it on the table between them. "That is where I usually sit," she said. Ethan unfolded it carefully. A simple drawing. A bus stop. Two small figures, one handing something to the other. He looked up at her. "This is us," he said. She nodded. "So you do not forget." Ethan folded the paper again, slower this time, like it mattered. "I will not," he said. And for once, He knew it was true. Because wealth, he realized, was not what you kept. It was what you were willing to give, even when it was your last.